mathematical terms. So today we're going to look at something we've been doing for a while, making tables, writing algebraic equations, nothing new. But we are going to throw in a little bit of new vocabulary. But it might not be that new. No, don't make a face. We got this, I promise. And it might even sound familiar from science, way back when you learned scientific method. So it might even be like another wedding, another marriage of two different concepts, something you learned in science and something we've already learned in math. So I promise, no faces. Okay, except for that smiley one. All right, so suppose Mrs. Pinto and I decided we were going to go shopping. Okay? If we go shopping for 1 hour, then we can go to 2 stores. But I need clothes. We need more time for that. So if we can go out for 2 hours, then how many stores are there? 4 stores. If we go shopping for 3 hours, then we could go to 6 stores. So if my husband says to me, all right, how many stores are you going to? I'm going to have to say, I don't know how many stores. How many stores we go to depends on how much time Mrs. Pinto has. She's got to get home to the baby. She's got to do lesson plans. So the number of, I don't know how many stores. I can't tell you how many stores until I know the number of hours. So this depends on that. Okay? Put that just a little bit aside for a second. Now let's read the first example. Marcus reads 30 minutes each night. He wants to determine the total number of minutes he will read over the course of a month. He wrote the equation T equals 30D to represent the total amount of time that he has spent reading, where T represents the total number of minutes read and D represents the number of days that he read during the month. Determine which variable is independent and which is dependent, then create a table to show how many minutes he read in the first 7 days. So first we have to make a table, then we have to find the independent and dependent variables. So there's our 2 vocabulary words. Does that ring a little bit of a bell? From science, independent and dependent variable? All right, a lot of words there. We're not going to get intimidated by a lot of words, because they're just words. Let's break it down. This is math. What are the 2 quantities that we have? What are the 2 things that we're counting here? Are we counting the number of Marcuses? Are we counting the number of books? Are we counting the number of nights? Are we counting the number of minutes? What are the 2 quantities that we have here?
The minutes and months.
Okay, so we're looking at not the number of months, but we do want to know the total number of minutes that he read. So the total number of minutes that he read, and that's 30D. We know that from the equation. Well, how many minutes did he read? If he read 30 minutes per day, do we know the total? No. What do we have to know before we know the total? Yeah, first we have to know the number of days. So, if he read 1 day, then he read for 30 minutes. If he read for 2 days, then he read. If he read for 3 days, then he read for 90 minutes. If he read for 4 days, then he read 120 minutes. If he read for 5 days, if he read for 6 days, then 180. If he read for 7 days, then he read for 210 minutes. So now we have to determine the independent variable and the dependent variable. What is it that we have control over? what is the determining factor? What was my if statement? What was my if statement?
Total minutes read.
Well, I don't know my total number of minutes I've read. The total number of minutes he read depended upon how many days. So our total minutes read is actually my dependent variable. Because the number of minutes he read depended on the number of days. Typically, when you're making a chart, your independent variable comes in the first column. You need to write these down, please. Usually, your independent variable goes in the first column. That's not something I would be nitpicky about, but just so you're aware, that's usually first. Because we usually like to work left to right. I needed to know the number of days to determine the total minutes, right? Because I don't know how many minutes he read. First, I have to know how many days it was. So let's take a look at the next example. Kira, do you know your sister design websites in her free time? Does she keep you up late at night, clacking away on the computer designing websites? No? Okay, so Kira designs websites. She can create 3 different websites each week. Kira wants to create an equation that will give her the total number of websites she can design given the number of weeks that she works. Determine the independent and dependent variables. Create a table to show the number of websites she can design over the first 5 weeks. Finally, write an equation to represent the number of websites she can design when given any number of weeks. So we have 3 tasks here, and I want to make sure that I fully answer the question. So first, let's go back and number our tasks. The first task is to determine the independent and dependent variables. Then we have to create a table. Then we have to write an equation. Okay? So I think it's easier to make the table first, and then the table can help us find the independent and dependent variable. So we'll do number 2 first. Go crazy. All right, so what are the 2 quantities that we have? What are the 2 quantities that I'm going to put in my table? What are the 2 things that am I counting? Am I counting the number of Kiras? Am I counting? What am I counting?
The weeks of the website.
All right, so I have my number of weeks, and that could be W. And then what's the other thing that I'm counting? So the number of websites designed, so I'll label that with the variable D. And they want to know for the first 5 weeks. So I can label my first 5 weeks. So if she worked 1 week, then how many websites did she design? If she worked 2 weeks, how many designs? If she worked 3 weeks, then if she worked 4 weeks, then if she worked 5 weeks, then 15. So now, which was my independent variable and which was my dependent variable? Right, because the number of websites depended on the number of weeks. I could not determine the number of websites until I knew the number of weeks. So I needed the number of weeks first, so that was my independent variable. Now what would my equation be? What did I do to my W to get to my D? What is the pattern over and over in my table? What did I do to my weeks to get my... Right, so 3 times the number of weeks gave me my number of designs. Let's just go back and check to make sure we answered all three tests. God bless you. Did we determine the independent and dependent variables? Yes. Did we create a table for 5 weeks? Did we write an equation? God bless you. 2 sneezes and a partridge in a pear tree. Okay. Let's try another one. Priya streams movies through a company that charges her $5 a month, $5 monthly fee, plus $1.50 per movie. Determine the independent and dependent variables. So that's my first task. 2, write an equation to model the situation. And 3, create a table to show the total cost per month. So label our 3 tasks, 1, 2, 3, so we don't leave anything out. Now we only want to stream between 4 and 10 movies in a month. So we have to be careful. So what are my 2 quantities? What are my 2 quantities? What are the 2? Am I counting the number of Priyas? Am I counting the number of months? What am I number of movies? Number of monies? What am I counting here? So the number of movies, which is M. But what do I need to determine here? What am I trying to find? I'm trying to find the total cost. In dollars, there's my unit. And we'll label that C for cost. Okay, I have my unit dollars, I have my variable C. Now to fill in my table, they want to know 4 to 5 movies a month. So I'm not starting my table at 4. I'm starting my table at 10. Somebody needs to go outside and play or read a book. 7 movies a month is a lot of movies. All right. So let's think about this. I'm going to extend this a minute. It's $5 for the month, just to rent the channel or get the program, the app, whatever you want to call it. But then we have to add on to that, it's $1.50 per movie. So if we watched 4 movies, it's $1.50 per movie. Per means to multiply. So order of operations, what's 150 times 4? So go to your margin, do the computations. $6 plus the $5 monthly fee, so it's $11 per month to rent 4 movies. Suppose there's 5 movies. It's $5 for the month plus $1.50 per movie, and there are 5 movies. So $5 plus $7.50. So it's $12.50 for 5 movies. $14 for 6 movies. Another $1.50 for a 7th movie. We could just keep adding on $1.50. $20 to rent 10 movies. It actually is much cheaper than going to the movies, and you can press pause when you have to run and go potty or refill your popcorn. So, hey, how am I going to pay the bill? How much does it cost? Well, I don't know yet, because it depends on the number of movies. So which is my independent variable and which is my dependent variable? That's what we're controlling, the number of movies. So that was my if statement. Think of it as I for if, I for independent. And our dependent was the total cost, because the cost depended upon the number of movies. And now we have to write an equation. So I had $5, then I had to add $1.50 per month. How would I write that as an algebraic equation? What did I do? Let's take this here. Take this and turn it into an algebraic equation. What did we do? So $5 plus $1.50 per movie equals my total cost. So with a $5 flat fee plus $1.50 per movie, per means to multiply. So when I write a coefficient and a variable in that term, that means to multiply. And then that equals my total cost. Any questions on how I set up that variable? No? Okay. Let's take a look at the next one. Sarah is purchasing pencils to share. Each package has 12 pencils. The equation n equals 12p. All right, they gave us the equation. Where n is the number of pencils and p is the number of packages, can be used to determine the total number of pencils Sarah purchased. Determine which is independent and dependent. Then make a table showing the number of pencils purchased for 3 to 7 packages. That was kind of a tongue twister. Now this says to identify the variables first and then make the table. I think it's easier to make the table. It's up to you. Okay? So let's see, what are the two quantities that we have? We have the number of packages. Good. The number of packages, which they told us up here is P. And what's the other thing? And the total number of pencils, which is N, equals 12 times P. So I don't know my number of pencils until I take my packages and multiply it by 12, because there's 12 per package. 12p. 12p means 12 times p, which means 12 per package. Per means multiply. Okay. So they're telling us 3 to 7 packages. So that's, I know a lot of us want to start our table at 1, but the directions are telling us what to set up our table as. So if there are 12 per package, and I have 3 packages, 12 times 3 is 4 packages, 12 per package, and then 16. But now, which is my independent and which is my dependent? Which is my independent variable? I'm spelling that wrong. Dependent. Sorry. So which is which? Right. Exactly. All right, let's try the next one. Charlotte reads 4 books per week. Let B be the number of books she reads each week, and W be the number of weeks that she reads. What's with these tongue twisters today? Then determine which variable is dependent and which is independent. Then write an equation to model the situation and make a graph that shows the number of books read in under 6 weeks. So 1, which variable is dependent and independent, then the equation, and then 3 is your table. So you worked on this on your own. Why does it say to tab? Nope, because I have the answers there. All right, so the number of weeks, W, is your independent variable. Your number of books, B, is the dependent variable. Your equation is B equals 4W. I would have written 4W equals B. It means the same thing, but we're that whole left to right thing. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. A miniature golf course has a special group rate. You can play $20 plus $3 per person when you have a group of 5 or more friends. Let F be the number of friends and C be the total cost. Determine which variable is independent and which is dependent and write an equation that models the situation. Then make a table to show the cost for 5 to 12 friends. So the number of friends is your independent variable. The cost is the dependent variable. So it's $3 per friend plus the $20 fee. If you did 20 plus 3F, you needed your equation, so let's add that in. So if you did, trying to get that mouse out of the way. If you did 20 plus 3F, that's okay too. And then that's what your table should look like. Are there questions on where any of those came from?
What if you added 20 and then add another 3 to it each time?
Yeah, 20 plus 3 for one person, 20 plus 6 for 2 people. If you had the 20 first, that's okay. Absolutely. Now your homework tonight has a front and a back. So don't forget to do the back for lesson 31 for your homework. Now they did give you tables in the module. However, they're very small and you don't have a lot of room for your computations, your equations, or identifying the independent and dependent variable. So you should still be doing this on loose leaf. It's not difficult to draw your table on loose leaf because, excuse me, the lines are already there for you. So this should be done completely on loose leaf, and make sure you answer all parts of the question if they ask for an equation and identifying the variables.